Welcome to the Making Life Magical podcast. I'm your host, Lori Hammond. Today, I'm speaking with Didi Verg. Didi is a hypnotist, a master health practitioner of neuro-linguistic programming, and an emotional intelligence specialist, and the author of Weight Loss Hacks 101. She is also a sought-after professional speaker in the fields of weight loss, food addiction, and emotional health and well-being. Didi has appeared on numerous podcasts, television shows, and radio programs, and I was fortunate to meet Didi and attend her 2-day training on hypnosis for weight management in July 2017. Enjoy the heck out of this eye-opening conversation with hypnotist Didi Verg. Welcome, Didi. I am so grateful to have you here today. And I remember the first time you and I met, it was in Las Vegas, Nevada, and I was so nervous and I was so excited and I was so honored because I was recording your post-conference event about a weight loss training that you do. So I just want to welcome you. Thank you for being here.
Well, Lori, I really was impressed when I met you, and you're a real team player, and you're somebody who doesn't just talk. So those are things that I value in people very highly. So that's why I was so happy to come on your podcast.
Thank you. That's a high compliment, a precious compliment to me coming from you. Will you talk to me a little bit about what you're passionate about in the hypnosis arena right now? And we'll just dive in from there.
Okay, so as you know, you met me at the weight loss. I know you and I can both attest to having been overweight, and we've got it under control now. And I have had it under control for about 20 years, but it wasn't always easy because the mindset around food and weight loss is so messed up. You're never happy if you're eating, you're never happy if you're not eating. It's just a horrible, horrible place to be. Every time you look in the mirror, that voice starts and it's just horribly critical. And it just puts one in a really bad, unconfident, disempowered state of mind. I mean, food is something that we need to eat 3 times a day. So it's not like any other addiction where you could, like most addictions, like smoking, even heroin's easier to work with than weight loss.
Wow.
Right? Because it's on or off.
Yeah.
Whereas food, you have to manage it 3 times a day. Oh, and by the way, everywhere you go, there's that junk food, like whether you stop at the gas station, whether you're walking by the corner store, whether there's a donut shop, every restaurant you go to offers really super unhealthy, highly addictive food. And we know this because if anybody's done the research on this, it's the food industry, and they intentionally create foods that cause addiction. They're high in sugar, fat, and salt content. They have this perfect combination that they call the bliss formula because it goes to the pleasure centers of your brain, much like cocaine or heroin, only it takes a little bit longer. It takes about 20 minutes or half an hour. It doesn't just get you right away. So that's why people are reaching towards food a lot, those particular foods. And don't kid yourself. They design everything in the restaurant experience, not just around the bliss formula, but from the moment you walk in to get you addicted habitually going to that place, getting the same thing every time. It's a very unscrupulous business. It's not about health at all. When you go to, especially the big chains have all the research done.
Yeah.
And they've got special consultants, and it's really unfortunate. So why do some people get addicted and some don't?
How do you personally deal with that pull toward the restaurant industry and towards those delicious foods? What tools have you plugged in for those?
I'll tell you, the one that I started off with when I was 28 years old was I just created a version in my mind, and I didn't even know I was doing it. So I was on the verge of getting type 2 diabetes because I was a vegetarian and I was carving out and eating a lot of sugar. Didn't know any better. My lifestyle was too busy. I had all the books, was going to read them, But lo and behold, by the time I was about 28 years old, and I had leptin resistance too, which we now know about, but none of this was known back then. So when I could feel I was coming down with type 2 diabetes, I was overweight. I could barely eat anything. I had hunger cravings that were pangs that were painful in my stomach, no matter how much I ate. So clearly my leptin was like the thing that tells you you're satiated was off. And it freaked me out. All I could see in my mind were like needles going into my stomach. So somehow my mind was smart enough to equate that Danish. There was these Danishes in the supermarket that I used to love. They were like these white swirls, and they had this big fruit thing in the middle and all this white icing on it. Not to mention, I'd eat like a muffin every day for breakfast because, well, that was just easy. It was at the coffee shop near my work, right? Somehow my mind said Danish equals needles. And immediately I never wanted to touch one again. So people would always say, how do you do it? Where's your willpower? How do you resist? They don't understand. This Danish to me means needles in my stomach. So I look at that and I do not even want it. And then I went on further to develop techniques that you experienced in the workshop, Lori, where we were making people averse to through a couple different techniques, some really nasty ones. I don't know if you remember the pull through technique.
I do remember it. It was nasty for sure. Yeah.
It is so nasty. I mean, there are some techniques that literally take 5 minutes, and we teach in the workshops that people do with one another that you will like. The last workshop I did that I had invited you to in Boston was, I remember someone saying chocolate cake, and they created the image of diarrhea or something. Well, like none of them ever touched their foods they wanted to get rid of again. One guy tried the pizza, and he just said it just didn't feel the same anymore. He goes, I ate it, but it's like all the pleasure is gone from it. So it just becomes that thing, something like you got food poisoning from way back when, right? That you can look at it, it used to be your favorite meal, but you just look at it and you're like, no, I just don't want it. I don't know why, but I just don't want it. It's a complete indifference.
I have noticed the same thing, even though like during the aversion session, when you're helping them create that association with diarrhea or whatever it is.
Oh yeah.
Even though during that session, they're like gagging. I've had one guy, I did it with soda. It was just after I met you. And I did this with soda. He drank tons. All he drank was soda every day.
Yeah.
And he almost threw up when we were doing this. But what I've seen is that afterwards, when they're going about their life and their day-to-day experience, they'll see that food or that substance or whatever it is that used to pull them in and just be like, meh.
Like, it's complete indifference.
Yeah.
It's complete. It's like shrimp. Everybody's like, oh, I love shrimp. And I'm like, I would never buy them. I would never cook them. If they're put in front of me, if I'm really, really hungry, I'll eat them if there's nothing else, but I don't enjoy them. So it's that indifference to them, whereas there's usually something that people love, like they go crazy over shrimp, right? So it's kind of that feeling. It's much like I poisoned myself one time with mojitos. It was such a rough experience having drank too much. I've never been able to touch one since. To be in your 40s and be that drunk and embarrassing, it was my own event. It was the sick feel. I've never touched them again. Never. Never. You can keep the happy memories, but still have the disinterest. So I remember, because we're Canadian, so we go to Cuba, and that must be the national drink of Cuba. So I remember this romance that I was having at the time. He comes with this big tray and he's smiling, and I remember that time with such fondness, because still to this day, he's a man who, I mean, I just adore, right? But the big smile on his face, and then my girlfriend was there, and we were getting a little tipsy with the mojitos, and we were at this like really, swank event, and I remember the memory with fondness, but I cannot drink the drink. So it is bizarre how you can keep all the good memories but not want the drink. It was shocking to me to discover that part of it.
Didi, I have noticed that myself in the past, and many people that I see working on losing weight, I should say trying to lose weight, they're like white knuckling their way through the experience. They're using willpower. They're like every night they go to bed and think, okay, how many calories did I eat today? Or they might be confronted with some tasty thing that they enjoy and they resist it. Will you talk a little bit about the idea of willpower?
Yeah, I don't like using willpower because it's finite. And eventually what's going to happen is you're just going to give in. And it's going to be that all or nothing, that I'm failing or I'm doing well. The, oh, I've fallen off. I have to start back again. It's
Mhm.
not about falling off a diet. It's about using the 80-20 rule, whereas 80% of the time you're eating well, and 20% of the time, I just call it being a little bit more relaxed. So it's not going back to the ultimate binge, but if you want to have that favorite, whatever it is, maybe piece of cake, or you're going out to dinner and you want to drink a little wine, have a little dessert and whatever, that's okay. You just can't do it every night anymore. And
Okay.
people used to call it a cheat day, and I didn't even like that because it's not, again, that's that it's just not a good way to, it's just, you know what, you can be a little bit more relaxed. The rest of the time you generally eat well, right?
Yeah.
And yeah, 80, I just call it the 80-20 rule. And by people just like just dropping out the sugar, the carbs, things like that, they're going to lose weight. But if you say I can never have it, guess what's going to happen?
Hmm.
You're gonna just lose your willpower and you're gonna binge, and then you're gonna keep binging because you know that it's time to get back on the diet. And then you're never gonna get back on it. It's gonna take you another month. And then round and round the circle goes. It's like a horrible, horrible, horrible mindset. Diets do not work, period. The
Yeah.
whole mindset of a dieter is you might as well write the word die with a T on the end because
Mm.
that's what it feels like. You can't live the rest of your life like that.
Okay, I'm going to ask you some questions. If I ask anything too nosy, we can just cut it out later. I'm curious, when you think about when you first started on this journey, you went from, borderline diabetic and all that scary stuff to where you are now 20 years later. How has that journey metamorphosized for you? And how, like, maybe how did you approach the initial weight loss as compared to how you manage it now?
I think I was constantly adding to my toolbox, right? So it didn't, like, for the first 5 years, it was a little bumpy. I was kind of up and down the 15 pounds. And then when I got really serious about it, then it was, I never allow myself to go up and down more than 2 to 3 pounds.
Mm.
The minute that starts happening, I stand back and I look at, okay, what's going on? What's changed here? Now I'll tell you a story that of something that changed that I had to find a solution for. So what was happening was I was staying late in my office until about 9 and not getting home till 9:30. And by then I was starving and I was just eating way too much because I was way too hungry. Hungry, angry, lonely, tired, halt. You got to look at those. You've got to prevent all those things, being too hungry, emotional stuff like anger, frustration, or things like loneliness, hungry, angry, lonely, or too tired. So I was too tired. So I was eating too much, too late, and I was gaining weight. So I thought to myself, okay, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to bring my dinner to the office, right? So here I am, these four walls, all by myself, boring office. My office was for work. There's nothing pleasurable associated with it. So I'd be sitting there eating my dinner at my desk. Normally I watch TV. I always have, or Netflix or something. I don't watch TV anymore, actually. Don't You've got to be really strict about what you let into your unconscious, all the messages, so the commercials and the news and things like that. But so I would always watch something, either YouTube or Netflix or something. So then I go home and I'm like, I want to eat all over again because that's actually how I relax. I turn the TV on, it's the end of my day, it's how I relax. So then I started thinking, okay, so like I can't eat at the office. I'm getting home too late to eat. What has to change here? And I thought, you're out of balance again, Didi. What's up with like staying at your office till 9 or 10 at night? Like, so that's what had to change. It was nothing about the food. It was the balance was getting tipped in my life. There was too much of the workaholic coming in again. So it's things like that. You kind of have to stand back and you have to look at, okay, what's going on in my life? What do I need to change? What's contributing to this?
Is there anything that you would offer the listener as far as a useful tool or a useful way to gain that perspective, to step back and to get that perspective? Because I've heard it said that the quality of your life is determined by the quality of your questions. So maybe if you have a question that you would offer or some kind of a tool that would help a person who's struggling uncover what it is that's causing that struggle and creating that scale going up?
The question I would ask is, how are you speaking to yourself?
Ooh.
What I find is often people who are overweight are just horrible to themselves. They're like, they look in the mirror, what a loser, you have no control. Who would want you? Who would want to date you? I know women who actually stop dating because they're 15 pounds overweight. Like, so I mean, they speak to themselves in ways they would never speak to another human being. And of course, what this does, and I'll demonstrate this by telling you a story about a woman named Belle that I used to know, because this is the effect of the negative self-talk. So I was having a party, a big party at my house, and I invited Belle because Belle is amazing. She's just an amazing person. Her company is lovely. She's smart, perky, fun. Loved her, loved her. She was a great person to invite to a party. So I'm looking around all night and Belle isn't showing up. It's not like Belle, because Belle is responsible. She's conscientious. She's a nice person. So I start getting worried. So the next day I give her a call. I said, Belle, what happened to you? We missed you at the party. I just want to check in, make sure everything's okay. She says, oh, Didi. She says, I make this massive platter of food to bring to your party. And she goes, and I was putting on my makeup in the mirror and I started to just say those things to myself, like, oh my God, you're so disgusting. You should be ashamed. Who's going to want to talk to you? She says, and I got so depressed that I laid on the couch. I ate the whole platter. Right? So that's the problem. When you're speaking that way to yourself and you're putting yourself down and your confidence takes a hit, it's like you're so depressed, all you want to do is eat. So it's like a self-perpetuating cycle. So I would say, like, how are you speaking to yourself? What are the things are you saying? Would you ever speak to somebody else like that in life? And if you did, what do you think the impacts to them would be of you speaking to them that way? And again, it's like it's a very backwards attempt at motivation when you look at it, right? Because if I just put myself down enough, maybe I'll do something about it. But what would happen to a child if you said they came with 80%, not good enough, got to try harder, something wrong with you, not smart enough? How long is that going to last and how motivated will they be? We have to pay very close attention to how we're treating ourselves and how that's driving our behaviors.
Do you have suggestions for a person who maybe some light bulbs are coming on as they listen and they realize that they do this to themselves and they might be thinking, well, this is so ingrained, I don't know how to change. How would you help a person start cultivating some new self-talk, some new things to say to themselves, even if it feels uncomfortable at first?
Just stop. And it's not easy, by the way, but when that voice starts, and I'll illustrate this with another client story. So I had this young girl, she was about 18 years old, had been overweight her entire life, but she did all the right things. She went to the gym, she did everything. And I gave her this little spiel about you have to be mindful. Look at how you're speaking to yourself. And I actually have, Lori, a chart which I walk people through, and you would have seen that in the course. It's like, what are your thoughts? What kind of state of mind is it putting into you? What are the feelings that go along with it, and how's it driving your behavior, right? And I said, you're speaking so badly to yourself. It's driving you to eat. Okay. So she's at the gym and she's just finished a yoga class. And she looks in the mirror and the old voice fires up. It's like, oh my God, look at you. You're so fat. She goes, wait a second. I'm here. I'm doing something about it. And she said that was the first time in her life she didn't go home and binge all night. So just when the voice starts, you say, thank you. Maybe acknowledge it for trying to do something, trying to motivate you. Thank you for trying to motivate me. It's not really working. I think we're just going to not say those things to ourselves. Let's talk about what we are doing, or I get people to focus on what's good and right about themselves.
Mm-hmm.
Like a lot of people are just good human beings and they're very helpful to their family or their friends or their good colleagues, that we're just focus on what's good and right about you.
I love the simplicity of that. And I want to share, it might help someone listening. I had a hypnosis session a few weeks ago where I was the subject, with a hypnotist guiding me through a protocol. And something about the protocol, like I would imagine most people listening have maybe experienced that kind of like deeply, for me, it's this relaxy feeling when I'm going into a trance or when
Right?
I'm listening to a guided meditation, or sometimes when I'm falling asleep at night, it's like I can almost feel a special kind of tingle in my hands. And that sensation went through my whole body. And I just felt this deep, deep, peaceful relaxation. And I remember thinking, I am so grateful that I have a body that can experience this.
Right.
And and I think I experienced more gratitude for my body in that moment than I have in any given moment of my life in the past. And this is something I've really worked on and cultivated. And since then, it's just been transformational for me to be a little kinder to myself, because I know these things. I teach them to other people, but I still find myself sometimes being rude to myself, and when I look in the mirror, when I think about different aspects of myself. So I just want to underscore what you're saying and talk about the importance of being kind. And it's really interesting to me, you're not putting in any kind of fancy affirmation or any of that sort of thing. You're just saying stop.
Because if you follow it down, you literally spiral down. Like I remember one time, I get very impatient
Mm.
with things, very, and it's funny, I'll be more intolerant with a stranger who is rude than a loved one. So I remember somebody called me from the local phone company and they were just nothing short of rude. And that like, well, how does she think she is? And I just felt myself spiraling down. And I said, wait a sec, what am I doing here? Getting so angry. She's some stranger, never going to see her again. Why am I letting her turn my day upside down? And I just stopped. I said, I just put it into perspective. I was like, this is not useful for me, to be this angry over a stranger's rudeness or their comments or whatever it is. She was just very rude.
Mm.
And you know what? There's always going to be people like that. So now I just kind of like stand back and I go, I'm not going to let this hijack me.
You started to talk about willpower and how willpower isn't, it's a finite resource.
Mhm.
What would you offer? Do you have like a tool, one tool you can give the listener, who people who might be white knuckling their way through dinner time or white knuckling their way? It seems like most people talk about the end of the day being the hardest part. Once dinner is over, that's what's so hard for many people. What is a resource that people could tap into when they're in that willpower space to step out of willpower and into, did you call it mind power?
Yeah, mind power, not willpower.
Okay.
Um, it's really hard because the easiest thing is the stuff that we do, Lori, that just makes them not want it, like
Mm-hmm.
makes it unappealing. But you got to look at what's driving the behavior. So a need to relax is most, and it's very relaxing sitting down with a bowl of popcorn, right? So how can I relax in a way that's healthy, right? So how
There's
can I
another
relax?
question.
Yeah. How can I relax in a way that's healthy for me? So
Okay.
whether it is getting back to the things you liked to do, when you were younger, some people would put on music and get really into music, or some people would do puzzles, or some people might do their art, or maybe simply going for a walk, because any right, left rhythmic movement will open you up to whole brain thinking, right? So maybe that's the way you need to chill out, or read a book, or but just do something for yourself that's just for you. Because when people are doing the binge thing with the chips or the sweets or the ice cream or whatever, really what they're trying to get is a need met for relaxation. So
Mhm.
how can you relax in a way that's healthy?
I love that question. That's such a powerful question, because I think so often when people are stuck in that willpower situation, they're saying, what they're saying to themselves is, "Oh, this is just too hard. I can't do this." And so does, or I don't, there's nothing that would be as fun to do. But when you say, "How can I relax in a way that's healthy?" or what activity would fill me up in this moment, all of a sudden that part of you that knows the things you don't know, starts delivering the answers.
You're
People.
actually very smart to say, what's the question? Because when you ask yourself a question, then your unconscious is going to sort for a solution. Whereas if you say, why am I so undisciplined? Hey, your unconscious is going to come up with every reason why you're so undisciplined. So if
Yes.
you say, how can I? So you spin around in the problem. When you ask a why question, you're spinning around in the problem. Why am I so, why do I have no willpower? Hey, your unconscious will answer you. It'll
Mm-hmm.
tell you exactly why you have no willpower, right? So the
Right.
question is, how can I do this differently?
You had mentioned that you don't watch TV. Is it okay if I dive in a little bit to that, talk a
Oh
little bit more
yeah,
about that? Because I think that
definitely.
I don't watch a lot of TV myself. Mostly what I watch is Bluey with my granddaughter. Can you talk to me a little bit about watching TV and why you don't do it?
Okay, so number one, the commercials. So one time I was sitting on the couch. I had a friend over and we had just eaten and the TV was playing in the background. And my mouth is watering and I feel like eating. And I'm saying to myself, I just ate, looked at the TV. There was 7 o'clock. It's all food commercials. Now they know exactly what they're doing. The food was close up. It was steamy. It was like all the beautiful colors. And you're just going, my mouth starts to water now when I envision the commercials. You know, when they take the Cadbury milk chocolate and they snap it and the caramel starts oozing out. It's insane. It can make a full person want food. So I was like, whoa, this is crazy. Like, this is crazy. Like, I have just finished a meal. This was playing in the background. And I was so affected by it unconsciously. Thank God I asked myself that question, like, why am I hungry? I just ate and looked at the TV. So that's number one. You're being constantly programmed. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And the other thing is, again, I did this. Like, I like watching series with women who are severely empowered. And once in a while, I kick it over to the dark side, those like narco queens,
Oh,
right? So
yeah.
I'm watching all these like crazy narco queens, like they're taking over the drug industry. I'm like, yeah, I don't like that you're a drug pusher, but man, are you got some chutzpah, right? So I'm watching this one, and she steps over the line, right? She has I think Gisela or something is the newest one on. She steps over the line and she has like a couple assassinated that have a 6 month old. And all night, again, I just noticed the feeling like I was rattled inside. I wasn't well. I was I'm trying to describe the feeling. It was like I was off. Um, it wasn't that I was sad. I was just rattled. I don't know how to describe it. I was disgruntled. I was like a little bit angry. Anyway, and then I thought, what is going on again? And I thought, I cannot watch this stuff because her doing that and seeing that and the level that she went to for her big ego, I'm going to be the godmother, was so disgusting to me that it actually continued to impact me for the rest of the night unknowingly. I found like it was about like an hour later, and I'm like, why am I in this mood? It's a mood. I'm really rattled. I'm not happy. I'm not my like happy self. And I traced it back to that. So you got to be mindful. Like, do you really want to be putting like this violent crap into your mind?
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't agree with it's not in alignment with your values.
I
Yeah.
do. I think and that's a big reason I don't watch a lot of TV is because it's very hypnotic and it sucks me in and it takes me down a path. And like I know up here in my head that it's just a story. I know that it's just a movie and that it's all pretend, but my body doesn't know that. And my body responds in a way that's really detrimental to my relationships with the people who are actually here now and who are real. And it impacts the way I show up in the world. So I didn't
Yeah.
plan to talk
Well,
about that during this hour, but hopefully that helps some people. And I think that that's really
it
beautiful.
will help. And I'll tell you why, Lori, because research has shown that you cannot be not hypnotized in less than a minute. So it takes less than a minute. And watch people at the bank. Okay, so you know how they have the big TV screen up there playing whatever it is. And we have this one channel that I swear every business on planet Earth, including the dentist hat on the ceiling when I was like this. And I'm like, I don't want to
No.
watch CP24. It's a breaking news. It's like the titles that don't really tell you anything.
Well, and how awesome that you realize this is outside programming making my body feel a certain way. And I think there's something really empowering about realizing this is not me and allowing it to move through you maybe. I've heard it said that an emotion takes 90 seconds to pass through, and I think that craving can fall into that category. And if we just acknowledge it and we look at the craving and we say, okay, this is here. I'm going to deal with this for a few seconds. It tends to dissipate and we can move on to something else.
Well, the more you try not to think about a piece of whatever you like, let's say apple pie. I don't like apple pie, but I'll just say apple pie. But the more you try not to think about it, it's like Lori, try not to think about a pink elephant. Try not to think about it. So you can't try not to think about it, because the more you try not to think about it, the more you're going to think about it.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just a matter of, you and I teach those exercises like the bilateral brain stimulation. Just put something on a timer for 60 seconds or 90 seconds and just throw a ball back and forth like that. Like, just like disperse that craving, like kick it out of your brain, right? So there's bilateral brain stimulation. There's, if you want to go really hardcore, I don't know anyone who's going to hold on to a craving after you do 5 minutes of alternate nostril breathing, which again does the same thing. It opens up the corpus callosum to right. So you're in whole brain thinking. So instead of having this like zoom, 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 apple pie, apple pie, apple pie, apple pie, you're discharging that and it's gone. It's gone. But you have to do something about it, right? So
Right.
alternate nostril breathing, I forget what the Indian term is when you look it up on YouTube, but just type in alternate nostril breathing or bilateral brain stimulation, where you simply take some kind of object and you just, right, put on a timer for a minute, just focus on breathing, and any right, left rhythmic movement is going to discharge anxiety, cravings, anything that your mind has become fixated on and is looping in the brain. It's going to discharge that away. So it could be anger, impatience, anxiety, cravings, anything. You actually have to do something about it sometimes, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Do you have any tips for people who hear this and they realize the life-changing power of it, but maybe when they're in the moment and they're experiencing the craving and their old programming is to think about apple pie, go get the apple pie, stuff your face with apple pie. And that's just the natural sequence of events that happens after a craving. Do you have any tips for people on how to stop themselves in that moment and remember to do the bilateral stimulation or the alternate nostril breathing instead?
Well, it's when you find yourself on your, like, again, it's such an automatic habit. We call it
Mm-hmm.
the habit loop, right? Because your brain is getting something out of it. It's getting pleasure.
Mm-hmm.
So sometimes you just by acknowledging it, saying, I really want that apple pie right now. Maybe that's my cue. So the craving could be the feedback that you need that tells you it's time to do something different. Don't keep pushing through your job, or take a break, or do that bilateral brain stimulation. Just acknowledge it. Just say, wow, I am really wanting some apple pie right now. What's underneath that? What's going on? And
Right.
even if there's nothing going on, it's just pure hedonism. And if you want to discharge it, like, discharge it through doing the bilateral brain stimulation or the alternate nostril breathing or going for a walk or doing something like that. You've got it. Because the more you tell your brain, like, your brain is on an automatic habit loop. It's like feel, feeling, go to pleasure. Food gives pleasure, right? So before you know it, you're already caught in the habit loop.
Mm-hmm.
But if you continue to break the state every time, you're forcing your brain to go to a healthy action, like the bilateral brain stimulation, right? So in essence, it's like you're putting up a roadblock. You're just like, boom, I put this roadblock up. Now my brain has to take this direction. And the more you do it, the more you're rewiring your brain. So I think just being consistent with it.
There have been so many precious little gems sprinkled throughout this conversation, and I am just so stinking grateful to you for being here. Is
Oh,
there anything else you want to make sure we cover before we say goodbye? And I want to get your contact information as well.
I just want people to be easier on themselves.
Mhm.
Like you weren't born with an owner's manual. We're taught accounting in school. We're not taught to deal with our emotions, so just don't be so hard on yourself.
Mhm.
Have some compassion for you. Treat yourself with the same respect you would anyone else. If you could just start that one thing, I think people will find that their life will change.
That's such a beautiful place to wrap up. And I know people listening will want to know how they can get in touch with you and learn more from you and connect with you. What's the best way for people to get a hold of you?
I can give out my phone number. It's 416-709-8895.
Okay.
Or I can be reached at email at Didi, Verg, V as in Victor, ERG, Didi Verg at protonmail.com. So you can
Okay.
read them, and then you can list my websites. You have all my websites. You
Yes,
can.
I will put those all in the show notes. I hope this is my desire is that this podcast goes so viral that you have to change your phone number because you're having 900 people call or text you an hour from
I
that.
will definitely not be changing my phone number then, but
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, Lori, and I would hand over anyone. I would feel very confident handing over anyone who if I didn't have it, if it went that crazy to you, Lori.
Oh, thank you. Didi, thank you so much for being here. I hope you have a beautiful rest of your week, and I will talk to you soon.
You too. Have a good one.
Thank you for listening, my friend. You can find lots of ways to connect with Didi Verg in the notes where you're watching this podcast. I have a gift for you too. If you've been struggling to make a decision, or if you know you want to get to a certain goal, but you have no idea where to start to actually get there, you can download my free Answer Room hypnosis audio by going to lorianswers.com. That's LORI answers.com. You'll be relieved to not only get the answer that you seek, but you'll also become infused with everything you need to follow through on the clear path that's in front of you. It works even if you're skeptical about hypnosis or if you're super analytical. Again, go to lorianswers.com. That's LORI answers.com to get free instant access to this life-changing hypnosis protocol. One more time, lorianswers.com.